Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. With me today is Henry Ibitolu, PhD scholar in future cities engineering at the universities of Edinburgh and Glasgow. When we were looking, obviously climate change sustainability is a big topic for us on Say Hi to the Future. And Henry is making such incredible waves, out of Scotland, out of Europe, and I'm sure globally. So, Henry, just wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Henry, one of the things that you talk to, you say that your vision, or you have this impact-driven mission, rather, it's to build livable, sustainable, and safe urban environments while creating the cities of the future. Take us through it, because I sort of see that as two different things. I mean, one, to remake or to make over what we have seems staggering, even more so than creating a better city of the future, because you're starting from scratch, if you will.
Yes. Thank you once again, thank you for the invitation. What is really dear to my heart is the concept of building cities from, like you said, from ground up. Because I'm originally from Nigeria, so I was born and raised in Nigeria. And as we all know, Lagos State in Nigeria is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. And not just in the world, is also the largest city in Africa as well, with over close to 20 million people in the city, in the population. So growing up, although I did not grow up in Lagos, but when I visited Lagos, each time I visited Lagos, I sort of like every year I visit Lagos, I tend to see that the city is really expanding at a rapid rate. So I was lucky enough to study meteorology and climate science as my undergrad degree. So this really gave me a better perspective of the whole climate emergency, and not just the climate emergency, also the technical bits of it, and really to understand how difficult it is to really solve these challenges. So when I finished my bachelor's degree, I was also fortunate to have been awarded an Erasmus Master Scholarship funded by the European Union to study for my master's degrees in Europe. So this sort of journey coming from a core climate background, now gradually shifting into an urban sustainability engineering background, has really given me a wide perspective of how we can really make our cities more efficient, not just efficient, but also livable, and not just livable, but more importantly, more fair and equitable for everyone in the city.
So, Henry, you mentioned, and there's a lot of accolades if anybody goes online and reads about you, but tell us about that Erasmus scholarship, because that's quite a journey. That's quite an achievement, and taking you, from Nigeria to Europe, from your undergrad to your master's. So what is that Erasmus, and what specifically did it help you study or learn at your master's level?
Yeah, so the master's scholarship was, so the title of the master's is Joint Master's Degree in Urban Climate and Sustainability. So I was fortunate to be part of the first cohort. So we got to study in 3 countries in Europe, and we got three diplomas, 3 master's degree from Glasgow, Finland, and Spain. So this really gave me a wide perspective of, living in Finland, which is one of the coldest countries in Europe, and then also living in Spain, which is also the hottest country in Europe. So it gave me a really wide perspective. And then also living in the UK, in Glasgow, which is one of the rainiest city in Europe as well. So it's really gave me a wide perspective of the whole European landscape. And also aside from that as well, so we on the academic part, we got to study different spheres of the urban sustainability challenges, from the urban planning to the management of urban resources, to the policy side, to the science core scientific part of urban climate. That's So yeah, I would say like my knowledge of urban sustainability now is actually thanks to the master's degree that I was fortunate to have been part of. So it's really opened my mind up to different possibilities. And because, like I said, I studied meteorology. So I've always been fascinated about the clouds, but actually space science was actually my first love. But because growing in Nigeria, we didn't really have access to space per se, like astronautics, or something like that. So I had to study meteorology, which was the closest sort of subject closer to space. So, but then now using that my passion for space and astronomy in a way to then using it in climate science was really a good sort of shift for me in terms of my passion actually. So yeah.
So Henry, I mean, it's an incredible learning journey. I love the fact that it was three different cities and three different climates. Um, but you mentioned something in there, and I'll build on that: three cities and three climates, how the world can be so different. And you're talking about an hour and a half flight, maybe from Glasgow or Edinburgh to each of those points, and it changes so much. How do you set policy, or how do you even understand as a policy maker where you need to look at in terms of the climate emergency that you're talking about? Because again, if our weather patterns are so different, do we need different treatments in different parts of the world, or is it just an interconnected, approach?
So I think to really solve the climate emergency, we honestly, I don't think we need just a single solution. It will require several hundreds or thousands of solutions. And these solutions have to be adapted locally in such a way, like the kind of solution we need here in Europe will be different from the kind of solution we need back home for me in Nigeria or in Africa generally, because the difference in terms of the geographical location or in terms of even the social background of the communities would require us to have a first-hand experience. So basically, I feel to really solve to create policies that would go a long way to solve these challenges, we need to I like to think of it in two kind of ways. So we need the technical knowledge and we also need the local knowledge. So
Mhm.
the technical knowledge that is the scientists, the experts, the climate experts or whatever. But then the most important part that we also need is we need the local knowledge as well, because you need to interact with the people who are really experiencing this change. So that's why I feel we need to involve more the communities in as we are trying to develop, trying to create policies for the different geographical locations in across the world. So yeah, so that's one of the solutions one way that I think we can really come up with really viable solutions that will be impactful in a way to solve the climate emergency.
So Henry, that brings up something interesting, and we'll get to your PhD in a second, but obviously you're extremely well educated somewhere along the way, because I'm on that path too. You have been teaching others. That's just part of the path that you're on. What I'm hearing is you need to speak to and teach somebody in Nigeria in a different voice and a different approach than you would in Finland or Los Angeles or whatnot. Can you talk a little about that? Because frankly, most people just go out there and try and scare the heck out of everybody. You better do this, or we're going to have no water and it's going to be 2 million degrees. And frankly, that's hard to embrace. Like, I don't get it, but what you're saying, I think I could truly understand that. Tell me what I need to do living in this city, in this country, in this environment to better support my piece of the climate challenge, if you will.
So going back to what I actually said the other time as well. So we need local knowledge. For instance, I remember then growing up, each time we go to the village to visit my grandmom, my grandparents, so there is something that they usually do, that there are different local knowledge or local practices that they've been practicing for years, hundreds of years, that even though they've never come in contact with scientists or experts, so-called climate experts. For instance, my grandmom, there's a way we actually make the way they store water, the way they store water in a kind of a mud pots, that even if the temperature outside is 40 degrees, the water in the mud pots will still be like let's say very cool temperature, in a way that you can. I remember then each time my grandfather comes back from the farm, he goes straight to drink from that water, even though we didn't have electricity. We didn't have all these sort of modern technologies. But then there's a way they've been practicing that for hundreds of years, that they were able to use, no, they were able to survive without energy, without electricity, without a lot of modern technologies that we rely on today. So yeah, going from that, we can also, I'm sure, if we ask people from Finland, like cold countries, or Canadians, people from cold countries, how they've been surviving for hundreds of years, thousands of years, without any electricity to cool or to heat up their buildings. I'm sure we'll get a lot of local knowledge how the Vikings were able to survive when temperature was like -30 back then without any electricity. So these sort of local knowledge, I think, are really important. Like, while we're trying to involve technologies in all the solutions we create, we also need to know that sometimes I tend to say that less technology is actually better, especially with the advent of AI. Nowadays, everyone is just trying to pour AI in everything, trying to AI-rize every solution. Like, no, it's not. We need to look back to how they've been surviving for years before we actually discovered about AI. Or so basically, in summary, local knowledge are still vital and important to creating solutions that will be viable. And yeah, also just one thing. Last week I was discussing with one of my friend, and we're like saying that, what if someday all our power stations or all our power lines all of a sudden shut down, without no power, no internet, no whatever? Now that would bring us back to like 200 years ago. How are we going to survive without that? Especially cold countries like Canada, Finland, Sweden, where temperatures can get really bad there. So how are we going to survive? We need to ask ourselves this, imagine, because I would say I'm not a doomsday kind of person, but there's high probability this kind of things might happen sometime, yeah, especially with all this hacking or whatever. So I feel we need to, yeah, in as much as we're trying to grow, we also need to look back to how they've been surviving, and how we can actually design our cities to be less reliant on technology and more sort of a passive solutions to cities. Yeah.
I love what you're saying, because we tend to go after the shiny ball, or the shiny ball theory, and whatever is hot we go after, we look at. And yeah, we do kind of, instead of building on the past, we do tend to throw it out. And you're talking about absolutely that people survived, maybe not as long as us, but survived, and incredible climate increments, differences, whatnot, hundreds or thousands of years ago, through using things, whether it's to mud pots or whatever type of stone or wood. You're touching on engineering, on architecture, on materials knowledge. I mean, that's fascinating. Is that happening?
Yes, I think at least for some areas, for instance, in the desert, sub-Saharan Africa, like in countries like Mali, Niger, or perhaps maybe also in the Saudi Arabian desert. I feel, yeah, for instance, in Mali, I think there are lots of places where they might not have electricity. They might not have had the opportunity to have electricity connected to those villages. but we need to go ask them how they've been surviving in the desert without electricity or AC or fan to cool their buildings. I think some of these solutions have been passed down across from generations, and they are still in use today, although they are gradually phasing out. But we need to basically go back and make sure they don't all phase out and try to learn from them.
So is that, I know you're doing research in future cities engineering at University of Edinburgh. Is that one of the things that you are looking at? Nascent technologies, or well, both nascent technologies and historical technology, and melding them?
Yes, actually, that's the focus of my, one of the focus of my PhD. So I'm looking at traditional earth material buildings. So buildings made out of clay, stones, wood, for instance, adobe buildings, earthen materials, rammed earth buildings. So I'm trying to understand how we can leverage these old, less fanciful technologies to actually make our buildings more energy efficient, and also trying to make them more resilient to heat waves. Because in Europe nowadays, we're having major heat waves happening. Like temperatures are reaching up to 40 degrees in London, in Cambridge, like even in France, and
Right.
hundreds of people are dying within just a few days or a week or thereabouts. So that's what I'm trying to look at in my PhD, to understand how we can leverage this technology to be more to design our buildings to be more energy efficient and resilient to heat waves.
I understand what you're saying in the sense of future cities. Is there an application, or maybe this is out of your field of study, which is fair and fine, but is there an application that says, okay, I mean, going into New York or Los Angeles or Paris and talking about some of these historical approaches to building where it's all steel and whatnot, is it real in terms of retrofit?
Basically, what I'm looking at is for residential buildings and
Okay,
not tall high-rise buildings. So
got it.
basically, no more than 3, 4 floors,
Hmm.
maximum 4 floors. So yeah, those are kind of those sort of materials will be more viable for those sort of buildings. So residential 3, 4 floors, and not New York kind of
Got
style
it.
of architecture. Yeah.
No, got it. And what you're saying is, I mean, in terms of growth, it's definitely going to be a dominant area of focus. So I love it. I just wanted to clarify that. Now, when I hear about what you're studying and what you're working to do in terms of changing the construction of future, we'll call them single family homes for now, are you literally looking at taking some of the properties of clay or mud and this, sorry for this, but baking them into the insulation, pouring them in as part of the insulation factor for a home or for a roof to give it, as you said, some of the capacity to keep people cool, like it keeps water cool when it's 40 degrees Celsius?
No. So specifically, what I'm looking at is so I'm trying to combine urban climate models. So urban climate models looking at cities or perhaps neighborhood scale climate models with building indoor energy use models. So I'm creating a model, a workflow to make urban climate models talk to building energy models. So right now, one of the limitations we have right now is that in modeling buildings, so engineers were architects when they are modeling building energy use. So we tend to consider just one single weather for all the facades of the building. But
Mhm.
that tends to not be right. That tends to not be correct, because based on the direction of the sun, and also based on the direction, based on the surrounding properties of that building, there could be shades on one side. For instance, the sun rising from the east and going to the south. But then right now we use just a single weather information. So right now, what I'm trying to create is to build a model that would use specific weather information for each of the facades of the building to
Wow.
actually optimize and make the building energy models more accurate. So we can better predict the energy use in buildings. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of earth materials. Like if we're going to use earth material for this sort of construction, how much energy are we going to gain from how much less energy use are we going to gain compared to when we use concrete or when we use steel or glass or something like that. So I'm sort of creating a model, a workflow that would make that possible. So specifically, I'm not looking at the core engineering aspect of it in terms of the structure, because I'm not an architect, so I also don't have a sort of a structural engineering background as well. So basically coming in from the urban climate background to the energy use background as well.
Listening to you, I think that's why you've become part of the UK Young Academy. And my understanding, you can tell us more about it. You are one of 32 young professionals across the UK appointed by the Royal Society to join this UK Young Academy. One of 32, that's extremely impressive. So tell us about the Academy and tell us what it and you within it hope to achieve.
Yeah, so it was earlier this year. Like you said already, I was one of 32 young professionals selected to join the UK Young Academy. So the UK Young Academy is a member of the bigger global Young Academy movement. So the Young Academy movement is a sort of a movement that tends to encourage young people to come together and create solutions, trying to find solutions to emerging problems within our environment. So I was fortunate to have been selected to be part of the second cohort of the UK Young Academy just earlier this year. So I've just been a member 4 months now, I think, of 5 months maximum. Yeah, I think 4 months. Yeah. So basically what we're trying to do, so we're creating different projects to sort of, one of the projects that we have on right now is a Scholars at Risk project. So we're creating sort of going to select a handful of scholars who might have been at risk. For instance, scholars that have migrated here from war-torn countries like from Syria, from Sudan, or anywhere around the world. So, well, that's one of the projects that we are currently working on right now, and we have several other projects as well.
Very cool. It's amazing that, well, I just give kudos to, the organizers, and this was thought of. And I love the fact that it's for scholars at risk, those people that might not have been, their talent might not have been discovered or optimized. So good luck with that. And we look forward to hearing more about it when you're past 4 months, when you're maybe a couple of years into it. Susky Climate Hub platform, and I think some of the vision or some of the moral impetus came out early in our discussion. And I say moral, I'm not sure if I'm using it right, but moral impetus, because gateway to access all opportunities within the climate change and sustainability domain, from amateur students to experienced professionals. To me, again, it says, speak to people who and where they are. Make this accessible. Don't just sit and make it about a small group of intellectuals or policy planners or super wealthy organizations. There's 8 billion of us. We're all in this together. So I'm probably telling you exactly what you know, but I was just so excited that, again, you're speaking to people where they are. So let me shut up and let you tell us about Susty Climate.
Yeah, the Susty Climate Hub is a website that I started. So basically, when I finished my master's degree and I was searching for the next opportunity, like the next phase of my career, I searched online for a sort of a website where I can find all opportunities that is pertaining to climate and sustainability. And by that, I mean opportunities such as PhD, master's, academic opportunities, conference opportunities, and even jobs as well, job opportunities within climate and sustainability. I couldn't find any. Most of them are sort of detached. So those kind of opportunities I found back then was like find a PhD, which is just for PhD. And then I found one just for conferences. I found several, there are several for jobs, but I couldn't find just one that where I can just register on and then get notifications of all these sort of opportunities. So that was why I came up with the Susty Climate Hub. And then yeah, that was sort of like a pet project that I started working on in the first 1 or 2 years of my PhD. And I developed the website myself, even though I didn't know how to develop website or whatever, but I learned it and I did that myself. But then unfortunately, the whole challenges of PhD and whatever, I just got so busy that I didn't have time to work on that anymore. But it's still something that once I'm done, I'll go back to working on that. But it's a sort of it was a pet project that I came up with back then.
Well, you know what? It sounds like a great idea. So I hope you do get back there. And Henry Ibitolu, it's been wonderful speaking to you about your work and sustainability, about how much you've already achieved. And yes, you are a young professional. And if anybody wants to know what I mean, just go to YouTube, look at us, and you will see that my age is somewhat different than yours. And that's the goal of Say Hi to the Future is to learn what breakthrough next gen thinkers like yourself are thinking and doing. It's just one last question that I like asking next gens that really are breakthrough in the sense that you are. Why you? Why do you think you have been able to achieve this coming from outside of Lagos, Nigeria originally? You said there was no electricity, no running water. You talked about your grandfather coming back from the fields to water in mud pots. And here you are, really being recognized as one of the most important young professionals in sustainability by the Royal Society in England. Is there something about you that is there a tenacity, a question asking, like, why you and not one of the other 8 billion people?
That's a very difficult question.
It's one I'm trying to answer though, Henry. No, I seriously, it's honestly, it's a big, I'm doing my dissertation now in human ingenuity and how we think. And I am so trying to understand if there's a commonality between people like yourselves who just achieve. Doesn't matter where they start, what opportunities were perceived to be presented to them. Well, what I know it's hard, but what do you think?
So I think it all starts from the mind. Yeah, that's what I'll say. I think it all starts from the mind. Yeah. So, like I said, growing up then, my actual dream was to become an astronaut, like to go to space. That has always been and it's still my dream. Anyways, like at the core of my being, like to go to space. But coming from Nigeria, from Africa, I've not been fortunate So I cannot apply to NASA or ESA or Japanese Space Agency. So not being a citizen of the Western countries, I'm not eligible to do that. So that sort of made me pivot my my passion to something else. But I would say it all starts from the mind, like having a positive mindset towards something that, and also having a sort of mindset that regardless of whatever situation you might find yourself, you might have found yourself in, you can still make anything is possible, basically. Anything is possible if we can put our mind to it. And like they always say, whatever you put your mind into, the universe will conspire to make it come true. It's just the way it is. If you think positive, positivity would happen to you. And if you think negative as well, maybe, oh, of course, yeah, if you think positive, some negative stuffs might happen to you, but it's part of the journey. It's not a smooth line. It's always ups and down. But then when you average it out, you see that you're moving up. So I think it's all about, it starts from the mind, and yeah, and also not being like asking for help when you think you need help. Yeah, that's one lesson that I've learned so far. Like asking for help when you need help, and also not being afraid to reach out to someone if you think the person might be of help to you. Like it goes back to your mind. If you feel you can achieve that, you just see that even if the person might not have an intention of helping you, but once the person notice that you are really positive about that, they would eventually help you. So it starts from the mind.
Thank
And
you.
also, just before I finish as well, because I'm a Christian and I'm also a Catholic. So I really believe, yeah, it starts from the mind. When you pray about it and you have it in your mind, it's going to come to pass. So when you pray about it, God is going to make that come to pass, fruition.
Henry, once again, thank you for being on Say Hi to the Future.
Thank you.